like a little kid in a big chair.
Need a cushion?
Yeah.
Good.
I'm sure they're obese.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, candidates and members of the public here with me in chambers, and also those of you watching at home. Welcome to the Town of Gray Town Council Candidates Forum. My name is Paul Johnson. I'm the Director of Economic and Community Development for the Greater Portland Council of Governments. I am not nearly as fancy as that sounds. It is my pleasure to be with you tonight and to help the Gray voters to match the faces with the names and the names with the policies ahead of the election on June 10th of 2025. There are 3 council seats available tonight. 2 are in June, 2 of which are contested. Here are the candidates running for each seat. If you're in the audience with me today, in the middle is Vincent Palange of Poplar Ridge Road. He is for Town Council 3-year term, uncontested. If you look to our left, Kenneth Farrington of North Raymond Road and Levi Robinson of Magnolia Drive are both running for a balance of a 3-year term to expire in 2026. And if you look to the right side, you have David Hall of Ames Drive and Charity Klinger of Priscilla Lane, who are running for a different one-year balance of a vacated 3-year term to expire in 2026. So there are 2 vacated seats, but there are 2 different places on the left and the right. For tonight's format, what I will do is I'll ask you a question. I ask that each of you keep it to 90 seconds. I will give you a little hand signal if it goes over 90 seconds and ask you to wrap it up. For each question, I will start with somebody new. So there will be essentially a round robin order, so everybody has a chance to speak first and last and so on. And I'll help us all through it. I promise you, it's easy to keep track of. So with that, let's start with the candidates properly introducing themselves. The order has been determined at random, and please keep your remarks to 90 seconds. First will be Kenneth Farrington. Second will be Charity Klinger. Third will be Vincent Palange. Fourth will be David Hall. And 5 will be Levi Robinson. And so with that, Mr. Farrington, you have the floor.
My name is Ken Farrington. I live on the North Raymond Road in Gray. Moved to Gray in 1974. When it was a small little quiet town with no lights, no traffic, no people. Best known for owning Ken's Car Care, Towing and Recovery, which I've been towing in this town for 30 years. I pretty much towed everybody twice. I've actually towed everybody in the audience once. That's about it. I've been on every road in this town, every driveway. I know everyone. I think I'm the best candidate for this job.
Thank you. Ms. Klinger?
Hi, good evening. I'm Charity Klinger, and I'm running for Town Council because I care deeply about Gray, our values, our rural character, and our future. I have lived in Gray for over 21 years. I've spent over a decade working as a fraud investigator for the state of Maine, where I focus on protecting taxpayers' dollars and upholding the integrity of public assistance programs. I also own a small livestock farm and grazing and mowing business here in town, which gives me a first-hand understanding of small business, agriculture, and rural life. I'm not a career politician. I'm a public servant, a small business owner, and a community volunteer. From youth mentoring to supporting local farmers, I believe in serving others and building community from the ground up. If elected, I'll bring the same commitment to fiscal responsibility, transparency, and common sense leadership. I'll listen to our residents, protect our tax dollars, and work to keep Gray a strong rural community that we're proud to call home. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Palange?
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Vincent Palange, and I'm running for the 3-year open town council position. I'd like to thank everyone first for coming this evening, as well as those of you for watching and you yourself for moderating. Tonight's discussion is going to be invaluable, as we'll be discussing several topics that have a direct impact on our town, both now and moving forward. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Maine. I attended St. Joseph's College just down the road in Standish, where I have a bachelor's degree in business administration. I've lived in Gray for 18 years myself, and I've worked in business my entire career. At one point in my career, I managed a $53 million budget without increases for several years, and yes, that can be done. I retired this past June after 20 years in the medical field, training surgeons in the operating room. During my career, I have negotiated, developed, implemented, successfully executed countless programs from conception to completion, and these are skill sets that I look to bring to the Town of Gray Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hall.
Yeah, my name is David Hall. I'm running for town council. I live on 4 Ames Drive. I've lived here for 13 years in Gray. I was raised in Leamington, Maine. I grew up working on 2 egg farms. I worked at a shoe shop after high school. I joined the Navy, and I was in the Navy for 21 years. I worked at Procter & Gamble in Auburn for 18 and a half years after the Navy. And in those 18 and a half years, I learned some ways to cut costs in all aspects of manufacturing and other parts of the company. While I worked there, I managed a couple of multi-million-dollar budgets. So I'm familiar with cost cutting and managing budgets and staying within the budget, because in Procter & Gamble they demanded that. For the town of Livermore, I lived in Livermore for a while. While I was there, I joined the planning board as a member. And after a couple of years as a member, I became chairman of the planning board. So some experience there. I'm retired from Procter & Gamble and, of course, the Navy. And I still work a couple of part-time jobs just to stay busy. And I'm looking forward to putting all the skills that I've learned over my lifetime to use for the town. And I look very forward to being on the town council.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Mr. Robinson.
My name is Levi Robinson. I'll jump right into it. So why me? For those that don't know me, my background is in finance. I started my career as a governmental auditor and audit manager for 7 years before transitioning in December 23 to my position currently as the assistant finance director in the town of Wyndham. Even before that, I've always felt that town councils and other boards really need to have at least someone with some type of financial background on the board because of all the important decisions that are made at that level, many of which have significant financial implications. In fact, when I was auditing, it was a requirement for us to read our client select board, council minute meetings, so that we were aware of any of those potential significant financial impacts. After I was appointed to the council 6 months ago, I have the opportunity to learn more about what traits are fundamental for someone sitting in that chair. In my eyes, the single most important thing this boils down to is that the council should be making the same decision that the residents as a whole would make if they had the opportunity to do so. What that means is you have to set aside your personal feelings on the matter. Perfect example of this recently is the additional deputy under the sheriff's contract in this year's budget. I've recognized that this is a contentious issue within the community, and that's why I pushed so hard for it to be split out as a separate warrant article, so we can be sure that the right decision that the residents support is the one that's made. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our first question. Ms. Klinger, you will answer first, followed by Mr. Palange, then Mr. Hall, Mr. Robinson, and Mr. Farrington. Pretty simple question. What inspired you to run for office?
Well, I was inspired to run for office because local residents encouraged me as they were looking for a strong advocate on council. One of the issues that pushed me to really say yes was the steady rise in taxes without enough accountability or visible improvement. I believe in leadership that puts people first, asks tough questions, and ensures every dollar is working for the community, not adding to the burden. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Palange, what inspired you to run for office?
I think you might see a common theme here. Seeing the large budget increases in the past 2 years and associated tax increases really opened my eyes. You know, there's many residents in this town, older residents, people who've built this town, and at the current rate of increases, many of those people could get forced out. And to me, that's just not right. You know, there's other people that are just trying to get ahead in this town. I've heard individuals from the town as well as even MSAD 15, they say, we feel your pain, but here's a multi-million-dollar increase. Well, do they really feel your pain? And I just feel like sometimes when officials, individuals get elected, they forget who voted for them, why they were voted for them, and at some point they feel like they know what's best for the town. I can assure you, I want to be a voice for the people that don't have one. Currently, 3 of the 4 current town council members voted to move the budget forward for a vote this June after what I felt were impassioned statements by many of you not to do so. Michael Johnson was the only no vote. If I was on the board, I would have also been a no vote. And ultimately, I hope we do turn that down so we can get a fresh set of eyes on this. The reality is the town of Gray has so much potential, but only with responsible leadership, a clear vision, inclusive dialogue, which I intend to bring to the town council. I want to make it clear, a vote for me is a vote to have your voice heard.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, what inspired you to run for this office?
Yeah, talk about common themes. So, but the first thing that inspired me was I was reading some article in a local newspaper, and that newspaper said that the transfer station was going away and we're going to do pickup delivery. It just perked my interest. So I said, well, what's going on? So I went down to the transfer station, did a little research, found out that that wasn't happening. Then, so that piqued my interest, because I was on the chairman of the planning board, so I did affect some change in Livermore. I said, well, maybe I have to do this. So taxes. So my taxes went up $2,600 a year, maybe it was $2,400 a year. And that was quite a jump for me. I'm retired, wife's retired. So, and I go to the transfer station on a weekend, talk to people, and I found out that theirs went up $4,000. But then I heard the chairperson on the town council say that 1/3 of the taxes went up, 1/3 went down, 1/3 stayed the same. And I was like, just floored. So I said, I got to jump in and do something about this, or see if I can. So that's what inspired me.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, what inspired you to run for this office?
So it would start with my background that I mentioned above. I really feel like that's an essential asset for at least someone on the council. The other piece is the turnover and stability. Realistically, 3 of 5 seats are open, and that can drastically change the direction of policies that were already in motion previously. So I feel that I kind of need to see this out and put my hat in for another 1 year at least. And then on a personal note, I'd say my wife, because my main hesitation in even doing another term was that it puts additional stress on her to watch her son while juggling her full-time job. But she's always the first to encourage me to do so and serve the community. So,
excellent. Thank you. Mr. Farrington, what inspired you to run for this office?
Well, I can say going last is not the way to go, because I'm going to beat this drum to death.
That's why we're going to rotate.
Yeah. So my tax bill also increased a lot, and so towing, I'm able to meet a lot of people every single day. I do AAA in this town, and the first thing I say after I load their car is, did your taxes go up? And if 1/3 stayed the same and 1/3 went down, I haven't met the 1/3 that went down yet, because everyone's taxes went up, and they went up a lot. And pretty much it's going to drive people out of the houses. Some people on fixed incomes, they can't afford this increase, and something needs to be done about that, and that's pretty much why I'm here.
Thank you. This question will start with Mr. Palange. Mr. Palange, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing your community right now?
Thank you. We have several challenges currently. Probably can't all be covered in 90 seconds. And I would say the biggest one for me is fiscal responsibility and budget management would hands down be at the top of my list. We have a great comprehensive plan, but if we can't get things under control, the cost of doing any of that could be, out of reach. The reality is that if people are struggling to pay an ever-increasing tax bill, do they really care about adding sidewalks, a bike path, or trees downtown? The reality is they don't. The same thing you hear about the taxes for 1/3 going up, down, and everything else. The reality is, even if that happened, everything's level set now. So if the taxes go up now, everybody's in the same boat. And for people that say they don't pay taxes, maybe they rent, you're going to be foolish if you don't think that tax is going to be passed on to you. I don't think there's enough transparency and accountability. How can citizens in this town make a educated decision without clear and concise information or without bias? The reality is, I want us to remain a town with all the character and community that we have. Ultimately, we just need to be careful and thoughtful about navigating the complexities and growth and modernization in the town.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing your community right now?
Well, these are tough acts to follow. Yeah, I see the same thing. So it's the taxes. They're just a big burden on people. We need to, there's got to be some fraud, waste, and abuse that we can look at try to get that out, for one thing. So another thing is we're giving you huge wage increases to people that work in this building. And I'm not sure that I understand what kind of extra work they're doing in order to receive that extravagant raise that they're getting. I don't knock people getting raises. I really enjoy that they're getting raises, but I don't really agree with the reason that they're given those. And that's because they say it's because they don't want the huge turnaround that they're getting. So I like to see more studies done before we do stuff like that.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, what do you see as the greatest challenge facing your community right now?
So one of the biggest challenges is economic growth, which is really necessary to spread the tax burden out further. But it also needs to be balanced with the preservation of the town's rural character. And the second one that everyone's going to talk about is the taxes. No one likes to pay them. They certainly don't like them increasing. But there's many factors beyond our control as council that make it difficult to not deliver some sort of overall increase. I'm never going to overpromise and underdeliver, so I feel like I have the responsibility to really be realistic in that capacity. And the biggest challenge really is the school budget. Ultimately, their overall budget was a 6% increase, proposed budget was a 6% increase, but of that, 1.5 million is what the town of Gray pays for an increase. That translates to 11%. So ultimately, that's nothing that the council can do anything with besides pay it. So you have to be realistic. Obviously, the voters can go and vote down that budget, but that is a very real challenge that we have at the town that we have to deal with.
Thank you. Mr. Farrington, what do you see as the greatest challenge that faces your community right now?
Well, I have three written down here. One is traffic. This town is just getting overwhelmed in traffic. It's just, I remember when there was no traffic. So that needs to be taken care of in some form. Taxes, obviously, everybody's complaining about it, and nobody likes paying taxes, you're right, but when the budget is overwhelming, ridiculously high, everyone's taxes are going to go up. And group homes is going to be a problem in this town. There's way too many group homes, taking too much of the deputies' resources, too much fire and rescue, have to respond to them, which taxpayers have to pay that. We don't need another deputy. We need to solve the group home problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Klinger, what do you see as the greatest challenge facing your community right now?
I gave three, but there's certainly plenty of others. One of the biggest challenges, I believe, is the rising taxes, traffic and speeding, and urban sprawl. And they're all interconnected. These issues put pressure on the homeowners and small businesses and our rural identity. If we're not careful, we can push people out and fracture our community. We need thoughtful, transparent solutions that preserve what makes Gray so special.
Thank you. Good news, Mr. Hall, you have no act to follow for this next question.
About time.
How do you plan to address the issue of affordable housing in Gray?
Yeah. We're giving this one a lot of thought. So, unfortunately, affordable housing is going away because of the regulations that come down from the state. So, according to our building code, I looked at it, and everything that we follow, it just says go to Main State section, blah, blah, blah. So, unfortunately, we have to follow every regulation that comes out of the state. So, but I did see on the news one night, there was Blue Hill was doing a project. The town was putting in the infrastructure, and I'm not saying I agree with everything they're doing, but I'm just telling you what they're doing. The town is putting in the infrastructure like the sewage and the pipe, the water, and all this stuff, and they're putting tiny homes in. So I think that we could benefit just by studying how that comes out, their project, how that turns out, and how it could apply for the town of Gray. So, and then we'll talk a little bit about the regulations. So, I'm just going to give you, for instance, the installation went from like 1-inch insulation, and now we've got regulations that can go up to having 8 to 10 inches of insulation. So that means you have to have 2x8s and instead of 2x4s. So that makes the house tighter and tighter and tighter. So when you get the house so tight, it can rot from the inside out because the moisture is going to stay in. So now you have to put air handlers in, which is another added cost. So you're looking at 2x8s instead of 2x4s. You're looking at thicker insulation, and then you're looking at putting air handlers in. So those are added costs, and that's what I'm talking about with the regulations.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, how do you plan to address the issue of affordable housing in Gray?
So this is really obviously an issue across the nation, you know, and we're not certainly isolated in that respect. So there's no real easy answer to solve it. Essentially, really the only way to support it is the addition of affordable housing is really to incentivize it in some capacity, which generally has an overlapping financial impact that you really need to evaluate whether that's going to be worthwhile or not to do. So kind of the other things you can do, which we're currently in the middle of the zoning, you can incentivize it there. Affordable housing TIFs are also an option, which certainly should be evaluated. Then maybe there's some potential grant funding out there that could potentially help with that as well.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Farrington, how do you plan to address the issue of affordable housing in Gray?
Well, this was kind of a confusing question to me because affordable housing go all kinds of different directions. But I was with David, I think a nice subdivision with some little small houses, 1-bedroom starter houses for people getting ready to start up, or elderly people who get taxed out of their house, they have an option to go. But I was reading the thing from Maine.gov on affordable houses, and I have a little quote here from the Great Comprehensive Plan. It says, the town has made great improvements in other infrastructures like a small public sewer system. So then if you go on to Maine.gov and hit affordable housing, density requirements, so that the town, the development must be served by a public, small district, or centrally managed water system or comparable sewer system. Well, if you have a sewer system and a water system, you can reduce the lot sizes to quarter-acre lots. Going to allow for cluster housing, for low-income, affordable housing. It's really nothing I want to see in the town of Gray. I'd rather have smaller houses that are affordable.
Thank you. Ms. Klinger, how do you plan to address the issue of affordable housing in Gray?
Well, I support affordable housing that fits Gray's rural character, and not some of the big developments that would change who we are. We definitely need some small-scale solutions, maybe more like allowing more in-law apartments. And I'll admit I'm kind of not very weak on, I'm not very strong on this point of topic. So something that definitely needs to be looked at further, but I'll work to help update the zoning and streamlining regulations without raising the taxes. With public and private partnerships and the better use of existing funds, we can certainly meet housing needs without sacrificing our values.
And finally, Mr. Palange, how do you plan to address the issue of affordable housing in Gray?
I think, as Ken said, it's a kind of a broad question, so we'll kind of take it at a 20,000-foot view. I think for starters, I'd like to get feedback from the citizens on what they would like to see. Again, it's not my town, it's theirs. Affordable housing is only part of the problem, because if we keep rubber stamping all these yearly increases on whether it's the school system or our town, it's going to make it that much more of a challenge. You know, we only have a finite amount of land in Gray, and we need to be good stewards in such a way to make it last. A couple things I'm not a fan of. I would say I'm not a fan of trailer parks, and that they bring little tax revenue and they use up a lot of land. I'm also not a fan of low-income housing apartments. We would need a lot of additional revenue to support this type of housing, and you only need to look at a city like Lewiston to see the negative effects on the tax base in the community. And as someone who was born and raised there myself, I've seen this firsthand. In line with Maine LD 2003, we could look at doing, as Charity said, accessory dwelling units. We could do that to help families with their aging parents. I'm definitely open to like owner-occupied duplexes, senior houses, condominiums, maybe young professional seniors, because if they own the property, statistically, they're going to take better care of it. And if they're just renting or it's low-income housing, you need to be concerned about that. I'm also open to mixed usage where maybe in the village we have, condos on the second and third floor, maybe downstairs a restaurant or a salon or something like that as well.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question is a question submitted by a Gray resident. So my wording might not be exact, but I'll capture the spirit of the question. What direction do you prefer for Gray? Retaining a small town character, or focusing on business and housing growth? And Mr. Robinson, you have this question first.
So I think there's really only one answer for this, and that's the small town feel. That's really the vision that's laid out for Gray in the comp plan, and ultimately that's kind of the most important roadmap we have to follow based on input from all.
Thank you. Mr. Farrington, what direction of the town of Gray do you prefer?
Well, I'm going to follow Levi. Obviously, like I said, I moved here in 1974 when it was a great little small town. So I don't want to see it change and go into a business district. But there really isn't any real estate around that you could really grow into a business district in this town anyway. So.
Ms. Klinger, what do you prefer for the direction of Gray? Maintaining a small town feel or focusing on business and housing growth?
Same lines. I have the small town as my preferred direction. I'm a big advocate for agriculture and small communities, and I like knowing my neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Palange?
So when I moved back to Maine, I moved to Gray for that exact reason. It's a small town feel. It's got great access to every place else. I'll let everybody else be the loud community. I like the quiet community. I've also lived in Portland, and as I said, I've lived in Lewiston, and that's why I want to be here. I don't believe the citizens, and talking to them, want that to change. I think we can bring in some businesses to help the citizens of this town conservatively to bring those resources in, but I don't think we have to go and bring tons of manufacturing in here. I don't think we have to bring tons of housing. I think we want to keep it the way it is.
Exactly.
And Mr. Hall?
Yeah, so I've talked to a few people, a lot of people, about this, and they want to keep it as a small town. So that's what the people of the town say, and you can hear it here. But I think we need more businesses, small, so that they can help out with the tax base. I mean, you can't just leave all the tax base to the town. They're not going to be able to handle it eventually. Inflation's going to outwork us. But yeah, I lived in Livermore. That was a town of 1,000 people. Gray's 8 times that. So this is kind of a big town to me. So, and it's going to grow more. But according to the comprehensive plan, it's going to grow at a very slow rate. So I don't think we have to worry about it getting into a big town. But I do think some more small businesses, like the breweries, are good. Stuff like that could add to the tax base.
Thank you. We're now back to the original order. So Mr. Farrington, you will take this question first. Related to the previous question, specifically, how do you propose to enhance the economic development of Gray?
That's a good question. I don't really have an answer for that. I went down and met with Denise Clavette, who is the economic developer director of Gray, who's a new position that we're paying $102,000 a year for. So I guess I would just make Mike Foley do his job and make Denise do her job. I didn't understand the question too much, is how the town councilor is going to go out and get economic development for Gray. I didn't think that was part of the position where we have an economic development director already.
Ms. Klinger, how do you propose to enhance the economic development of Gray?
Well, I think economic growth should strengthen, not change our town. So I would consider supporting local businesses by promoting more rural industries like farming and remote work hubs, small businesses like cafes, as Mr. Hall mentioned, maybe a couple of breweries or something, or some more restaurants. But looking at investing in roads, utilities, and smart infrastructure, that'll help us grow sustainably without big city sprawl or higher taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Palange, how do you propose to enhance the economic development of Gray?
First I'd like to get up to speed with those that are more intimately, involved with this behind the scenes. I'd also like to spend some time with some existing business owners. I've heard sometimes it's not easy to do business here, and I'd like to validate that and understand the pros and cons. The current businesses have supported our community, and I think we owe it to them to value their feedback. My hope would be that any new businesses that would come in would complement their businesses to help them grow as well. I look at both Ken and I look at both Charity. They're both business owners in our town. So having them, in my opinion, on this council would be invaluable. Ultimately, enhancing economic development in Gray would be a strategic approach that leverages the town assets and fosters supportive environment for businesses and residents. I think you could look at TIFs, streamlined permitting, and there's quite a few other things. But ultimately, I would personally like to start with what are the people working on now, and then talking to existing business owners, because they're the real people that have built the structure to start with.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, how do you propose to enhance the economic development of Gray?
I think I mentioned it a couple times, but, adding businesses to the town wouldn't hurt anything. Like, I don't know, they all had great answers. Can I top those? No. I just go with the same thing I've been saying. We keep the small town feel, but we bring more businesses in, like breweries, restaurants, what have you.
Thank you. And lastly, Mr. Robinson, how do you propose to enhance the economic development of Gray?
So the town recently hired Denise to lead the charge on economic development, so I think supporting the work that she's doing would really be the first step. Beyond that, TIFs are really one of the only tools that municipalities can really use to leverage development in certain areas. There's a lot of misconceptions about TIFs out there, but essentially what happens is you designate an area, and instead of future development adding general fund tax dollars within that area are sheltered and can be used entirely for a specific purpose, such as economic development. The valuation growth associated with parcels in this area is also sheltered and excluded from the county tax and school subsidy formulas. So essentially what that means is that we're going to pay less in county taxes, and the school will also get more subsidy funding than they would have otherwise if the growth tax dollars went into the general fund. So this allows us to get at least 3 times as much bang for the buck, essentially, from the tax dollars generated within this area, because we keep 100% of them, as opposed to them being part of the regular budget and paying for the school appropriations monthly and the county expenses. And they're further directed to things such as economic development.
Thank you. Good news, we're halfway through and ahead of schedule. Ms. Klinger, you're up for the next question. What measure will you take to ensure transparency and accountability in the town council?
Well, I think transparency is extremely essential. So I'll push for more fully open recorded council meetings, more clear budget reporting, and more regular town halls. Residents deserve to know how decisions are made and where their money goes. I'll support conflict of interest disclosures, independent audits, and make sure that government is working for you, not behind closed doors.
Thank you. Mr. Palange, what measures will you take to ensure transparency and accountability in the town council?
Sure. So when I look at something, like our recent budget, I really want to know the pros and cons. My feeling is that some things are glossed over, and that can lead to poor decisions and waste, and that won't happen with me. I'm not a fan of the you have to vote for it to know what's in it dialogue. And I can tell you, if I'm misled or misinformed on a topic that ends up passing, I'll make sure that those that do that are held accountable. This is the taxpayers' money. It's not the town's money, and we need to be good stewards of that money. I would focus on areas of transparency. And accountability could be, I like to look at doing a Facebook page under the direction of the town where I could put out information in pros and cons so that people truly understand the topic and all the ins and outs without bias. I do think, to Chair's point, I think all meetings, even non-public ones, should be recorded. And I would have my email and such be available so people could reach out. And I do think we need improved clarity in our budget reporting. Ultimately, the transparency and accountability start with the willingness to listen and a commitment to act with integrity. I believe the public trust is earned through consistent communication, responsible governance, and a sincere respect for the community input.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, what measures will you take to ensure transparency and accountability in the town council?
Well, I heard this last summer, believe it or not. It said, Dave, you're too honest. You need to run for something. So I'm running. Yeah, if somebody wants to know something, all they gotta do is ask me. Right, I'll tell them. I mean, as long as it's okay to tell. If it's something that we're doing that we can't tell, because they go into executive session. So I don't know what that's all about, but so they go off camera and do something behind the camera. So whatever that's all about. I don't know if I have to keep that secret, but anyway, if you ask me, I'm going to tell you. So most of the town now has my phone number, so they'll be able to call me at any time or text me and ask me a question. I can get them the answer.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, what measures will you take to ensure transparency and accountability at the town council?
So as a council, we really need to ensure that we're making every effort to maintain the trust of the public. Events in recent years have understandably hurt the public trust in the town, so I think we really need to go above and beyond in order to repair that. The best way for us to do that really is just to keep asking questions and make sure that the information provided to the public is built on a strong foundation that we can use to explain and educate the public. As for transparency, I'm always going to do my best to explain things in detail. In that line of thinking, I think I also left the school budget explanation a bit short earlier. Their struggle essentially is that the state subsidy funding is not keeping up with their constant increases for their other expenses, whether it's salaries or other things. So because of that, the burden falls disproportionately back onto the town, and they have limited revenues comparably to the town to offset that. So I just wanted to elaborate on that a little bit, because it's not their fault.
Mr. Farrington, what measures will you take to ensure transparency and accountability at the town council?
Well, right now I think the town council is kind of at odds with the public. I don't think the public really trusts the town council too much. It's standing here. And I'm all about transparency, honesty, tell you like how it is. And like I said, I interact with the public every day. I always talk about it and all the problems that we have. But it seems like it's a really hostile environment right now between the council and the people of the town, being overtaxed. And I think the town's kind of overpaid and underworked. That's kind of pissing everybody off.
Thank you. Mr. Palange, you are first for this next question. How do you plan to engage with the community?
Sure. Well, I plan to engage with the community in ways that are consistent, inclusive, and genuinely responsive. I was brought up to treat people like you want to be treated, and I plan to be very approachable. I'd like to ask the residents what would they like to hear and how would they like for myself and others to communicate with them. Maybe such as a Facebook page where I can put the pros and cons down. Ultimately, my goal is to make the government feel less distant and more like a shared conversation where all the residents feel respected, informed, and empowered.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, how do you plan to engage the community?
I already do that. I go to the transfer station every weekend and just meet people, shake their hand, tell them what I'm all about. I got a little flyer I pass out. So that's what I do. I'm going to continue to do that too.
Ms. Robinson?
So I think the only way to really do that is get involved within the events within the community. In the past 6 months that I've been on the council, I think this is something definitely that I can improve on going forward. That being said, I'm always happy to make time to chat with residents that reach out to me. I've had a few lengthy conversations with residents during that time period, and I'm more than happy to continue doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Farrington?
I engage with the community every single day. I get gas at Cumberland Farms every morning at 7:30, 8 o'clock. Takes me like 20 minutes to get out of Cumberland Farms, talking with people. Like I said, I've been doing it for 30 years. Been down every road, every driveway. So I literally talk and hear to everybody in this town. They're more than welcome to call me. They know my number, it's in the phone book. And that's how I plan on doing it.
Thank you. And Ms. Klinger?
Well, I feel that good leadership means listening. So I'll plan on holding regular meetings I'll be available by phone, email, and in person to keep residents informed through regular updates. You'll see me around town because I believe real solutions come from being a part of the community, not just sitting on the council seat. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, you're first for this one. What is your stance on environmental sustainability, and how do you plan to implement sustainable practices in Gray?
Yeah, I struggled with this one. So environmental sustainability, to me, is making sure that the environment, like our ponds and stuff, stay ponds and not polluted, and streams are not polluted. So I've looked at the comprehensive plan, they address that there. So I like to enforce that part of the comprehensive plan to maintain what we got. Also, I think the looks, like how the town looks, and still doing environmental sustainability. I think these solar farms, like the ones that you can see from the highway and you can see from 26, pretty ugly. I know that we're trying to maintain our environment by using solar power, but I think that's kind of ugly. So I don't think that that's the proper way to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, what is your stance on environmental sustainability, and how do you plan to implement sustainable practices in Gray?
So I'm a big supporter of these initiatives. However, these policies that are implemented really need to be carefully evaluated prior to implementation, just to ensure there aren't any unintended consequences. And really the recently passed solar panel ordinance is kind of a good example of that, where solar in itself is beneficial for the environment, but we really need to make sure we get it right and added restrictions for usage within the wellhead protection districts to ensure that there wasn't any added risk of water contamination. In general, there's just no do-overs when it comes to the environment, so it's our responsibility to protect that for future generations.
Thank you. Mr. Farrington, what is your stance on environmental sustainability, and how do you plan to implement sustainable practices in Gray?
Well, I'm going to be like David. I had to actually Google this. Environmental sustainability refers to the ability to maintain a balance with the Earth's natural environment and conserve resources to ensure the well-being of both current and future generations. That's just one definition. And I'm going to use myself as a prime example for this. I own 85 acres of raw land in Gray. Been taxed to death on it, and I know Adam Wilkinson is going to come in and give a little speech about his problem with being overtaxed for raw land. So you can't have environmental sustainability, and if you want to pass stuff on to future generations, if the town is going to tax the crap out of you. So I went into town today to talk about this. If somebody had a field, they have no way to get tax relief from them except for if they hay it. For myself, I have to go into tree growth, or my 85 acres is going to be nothing but 85 acres of stumps to pay for the increase in taxes. So I don't think the town can do both. I mean, it'd be nice to have all open spaces and have people maintain all the open land that they have, but sooner or later you're going to tax them out and they're going to give in to developers. So that's a tough question. Something's going to have to be worked on.
Thank you. Ms. Klinger, what is your stance on environmental sustainability, and how do you plan to implement sustainable practices in Gray?
Well, that is definitely a tough question, but I certainly support protecting farmland, water, and open space through local common sense solutions. I'll advocate for low-cost energy upgrades to the public buildings, smarter waste management, and sustainable farming practices, all without these heavy-handed regulations. I support and will continue to encourage the support of the use of our transfer and waste recycling facilities. It's about preserving what we have while being responsible with our taxpayers' dollars.
Thank you. And Mr. Palange, you have the last word on what is your stance on environmental sustainability, and how do you plan to implement sustainable practices in Gray?
You know, I feel that we must be vigilant in protecting our town's water supply and other natural resources that, as obviously not doing so, could have devastating effects. It's hard to turn back the clock. I would definitely speak with those who are currently involved with the environment sustainability, such as those of the transportation, to get their thoughts and ideas. I'd also like to say that I see the transfer station as a vital hub for this town and would have zero desire to ever change this. It's much more than just a transfer station. It's become a place where neighbors and other community members meet. They share information, ideas, and support each other. I personally am not a fan of either wind or solar. They take up valuable land of which we have a finite amount. And they rarely provide the true value which they're sold on. Also, I'm very concerned about their end-of-life process. I'm also a fan of open spaces, and if we want to have ideas to help with the community, if we want to have a great cleanup day, maybe we can get the high school kids involved. If you want to do a hazardous waste day or educate people on composting, or even making residents aware of state or other incentives that fall in line with ways to do that, I'm all for that.
Thank you. The next question, Mr. Robinson, you'll be first. A major initiative currently ongoing is the Village Transformation Project. It's a multi-year effort that calls for shorter, safer crosswalks, new and rebuilt sidewalks, bike lanes, street trees, and traffic calming measures such as narrower travel lanes for cars, slower posted speed limits, and village appropriate signs. So I'm going to read that once. And then the question for you, what is your stance on this project, and how do you as a candidate define success of this project?
So one of the duties of council is to implement and fulfill the comprehensive plan, and really the initiatives within VTP are all essential components of the comp plan. So success really is to see that vision to completion, and there might be some necessary tweaks just because of unforeseen events. But at the end of the day, it'll be a success as long as the end result creates that rural village feeling.
Mr. Farrington, speaking to the Village Transformation Project, what is your stance on this project, and as a candidate, how do you define success?
Well, I went down to the town office and I got a picture of the new plan that they're proposing. There's a picture of it. So the green is the new plan they have, and the red is the old. So looking at this, their plan is to choke the town down. So if you have a tractor trailer, I don't foresee how you're going to get through this town anymore. If you have a Toyota Prius, you're going to do very well. So all the roads are at 90-degree angles. There's no way for Cumberland Farms to be able to get any gas supplies. Any tractor trailer coming up from West Gray Road isn't going to be able to make that turn. Brown Street's going right into Aroma Joe's, zigzag around that. So I was told a long time ago, the traffic light from Brown Street to Yarmouth Road isn't long enough to have people come down and take a right-hand turn off Yarmouth Road. I don't believe this plan is going to work at all. So they need to redo that. I would love to see less traffic in town, but I don't see this plan working.
Thank you. Ms. Klinger, speaking to the Village Transformation Project, what is your stance on this project, and as a candidate, how do you define success of this project?
Well, I'm kind of following along the lines of Ken. I don't see that particular plan working.
There you go, Dan. Set that down.
Some of the concerns was, would the town actually be able to get one of their regular sized plow trucks down through there? Based on what we were hearing, there was a concern that the town would have to purchase smaller plows in order to make this plan work, which means more money. Don't get me wrong, I support some of the goals of this plan, especially for making it safer and more walkable, but only if it's done responsibly, with community input and more fiscal discipline. Success means better safety, stronger local business appeal, and preserving Gray's charm. But we need to ensure that every dollar is well spent. So I think this needs to be relooked at much more so. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Palange, speaking specifically to the Village Transformation Project, what's your stance on this project, and how do you define success?
In the end, I'm going to hop on with Charity and Ken a little bit here. The reality is, I wouldn't define the success. I think the citizens of Gray obviously would define the success of the program. I mean, who wouldn't want to beautify the village? But the reality also is at what cost and what's the return on investment and how is that going to be validated? Especially, again, we go back to the ever-increasing budget cost and school cost. The reality is, if it was all free and we could snap our fingers, that would be great. But ultimately, I just want to approach things with an open mind and kind of see where things go. But again, I would like to revisit things as best we can, because remember, this was done several years ago and things have changed. A lot of people that were for this may not even live here anymore. So I just really think that we need to reassess this before making any big decisions.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, speaking specifically to the Village Transformation Project, what is your stance on the project and what does success look like to you?
Can I see that plan?
Absolutely.
So, we'll go back to this thing. So,
Green is
no,
new, red is
green,
old.
yeah, green is go. No, I'm excited about beautifying the town. I like what Mr. Farrington said. I'm sorry, Mr. Palange said that we want return on investment, and how much is this going to cost? And I know this is the early stages, so this isn't the final plan. It's going to go before the planning board, and the planning board. So we've already asked some questions, so they'll need to address that because I'm going to be there to make sure we address these things. Good points. Good job, Ken, bringing that plan in. We talked about this. We saw this before the meeting. Crazy. Yeah. Where's this money coming from? So everybody's already talking about taxes, right? So we're going to have to borrow a bunch of money, so it's going to be a bond probably? No. I always say no to every bond. So right there, I'm already against it. So the success will be if it's free, or if we can find a way to pay for it and not have to drive my taxes up. So that's where I'm at right now.
Thank you. Last question before closing statements. Mr. Farrington, you're first. How do you plan to help create the Town of Gray's budget to ensure fiscal responsibility while still meeting the needs of the community?
Well, I think the budget is really overinflated for starters, and the town has way too much money in their account. So I think they really spend money ridiculously. So I think that needs to be trimmed down a little bit, but the town also needs to survive. So $7 million in their account, $7 million in the school budget's account. We just calculate the interest on that. It's like $600,000 a year. Where's all this money going? What are they doing with it? So I think budget needs to be toned down to where the taxes need to come down a little bit. I don't think the town needs everything they have in this town. Everybody has a brand new $60,000 vehicle. I don't see that. What they need that. So I think we just need to trim the fat out of this budget and go from there.
Thank you. Ms. Klinger, how do you plan to help create the Town of Gray's budget to ensure fiscal responsibility while still meeting the needs of the community?
Well, kind of along the lines of Mr. Farrington, I think the town's budget should reflect strong priorities and smart spending. I certainly support zero-based budgeting, so every dollar is justified, and not any of this, oh, well, last year we spent X amount of dollars, so this year let's increase our budget to this amount. I'll focus on essential services, cut waste, and involve residents early on in the process. With strategic planning and transparency, we can meet the needs of the town without overburdening taxpayers.
Thank you. Mr. Palange, how do you plan to help create the Town of Gray's budget to ensure fiscal responsibility while still meeting the needs of the community?
The rising cost of the town budget is one of the main reasons I'm sitting up here. The town has an opportunity to put a fresh set of eyes on the budget, and I, for one, will be voting no in June on the budget with the hopes that we can hopefully take a hard look at this to make sure that the citizens are getting the best value for their dollar. My approach to the town's budget would be a commitment to transparency, long-term thinking, and community-first priorities. The way the budget is presented right now can make it very difficult to follow the money trail. certain things from departments are merged with other departments. You've got the library and the rec department combined as one, just to name a few. Ultimately, we need to prioritize needs over wants, and I won't tolerate waste or misuse of taxpayer money. I'd personally like to be in a position where I could have the town manager and the department heads sit before us and go through things line item by line item to make sure they're accountable for everything. I also think we need to be more creative about how we look at things to maximize our money. For example, so we're buying a new truck. Do we lease? Do we buy used? Do we buy at auction? What I'm saying is it's time that we look to be more creative, and hopefully we get ideas and feedback from other people, because it's important to get out of the shell and start to look to do things differently. If not, we're just going to keep going down the same path. And I'd also like to revisit policies and contracts in place to see if there are ways that we can improve the value for the town.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, how do you plan to help create the Town of Gray's budget to ensure fiscal responsibility while meeting the needs of the community?
So I came to some of these budget meetings with the town council and watched the budget process. So because I did that, and because I got a lot of input from the town, and very good input, I am also voting no on the budget in June. So what I heard was the department heads, they gave their input, and then they went up on what the department heads asked for. Why? I don't know. The reason was something obscure. So that means the budget was padded. So we have extra money in case something. But if a department head says, this is what I need, and then you say, no, this is what you need, why? So that department head is incompetent? Or what? I don't know. Just ask questions. So capital. The capital used to be 1.2 million, then it went to 1.1, then it went to 369,000, now it's zero. So somewheres along the line, we lost $1 million. So we went up $1 million on the budget. And then we're borrowing money this year. I don't know if you know it. So next year we're going to pay for that borrowing because we need to pay, we need to keep the budget so it looks nice. So we borrowed money. Why? I don't know. So I'd like to find out. So if I'm sitting on this, I mean, if I stood up and I asked those questions, which people did, it get like, yeah, whatever, go sit down. So no, you're gonna listen to, I'm gonna listen to the people. If they tell me something like that, I wanna know why. I'm not gonna just say, yeah, okay, yep, yay. No, that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson, last question for you. How do you plan to help create the Town of Gray's budget and to ensure fiscal responsibility while still meeting the needs of the community?
So while the original budget creation starts at the department head and town manager levels, I have a large amount of experience in crafting both a budget initially from my job in Wyndham and also in examining a budget from the audit lens. I'm also a member of the Government Finance Officers Association, known as GFOA, and I'm almost finished with their CPFO certification to become a certified public finance officer. I say all that to get to the point that true fiscal sustainability is a fundamental principle in budget creation. It's something that I've spent a significant amount of time both learning and practicing in my career.
Thank you. That concludes our 10 questions. With that, we'll have 90-second closing statements. We'll go in the reverse order that we did for the opening statements. So, Mr. Robinson, you have 90 seconds for a closing statement.
So obviously taxes are the single most important topic that really people care about. I think it's worth remembering that there's certainly things you can talk about, but the municipal piece of this budget is a decrease after valuation increases, which are naturally occurring. So really, in order to get a true overall decrease, the only thing we can do is cut services, because as I mentioned, that school budget, there's nothing we can do in these seats about. You can go to the polls and vote against it there, or the referendum, but ultimately as a council, we have no say over that piece of things. Ultimately, we're gonna find out if that's what residents want. If cutting services is where they wanna go, we're gonna find out very shortly.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, 90 seconds for closing statement.
Yeah, so there's a lot of other things that people were telling me that they like me to work on. One was the staffing So they come here, so there's people that have small businesses, and some of them need to see the code enforcement officer to sign off on some project that they're working on. And I'm hearing that they have to cut their work hours short and get here by 2 o'clock before the code enforcement officer leaves. And then sometimes they find out that they're already left, and then I found out that they have flex hours. So that's another thing I'm going to work on. Like I said, waste, fraud, and abuse. So I think that the town budget, even though I managed 2 budgets, and I had to say this is what I want, and nobody padded it for me. I had to pad it myself. But I understand you got to pad it a little bit. But when we got it fine-tuned, each of my department heads were able to tell me an exact number, and I didn't have to pad it anymore because we just worked on it and on how to manage a budget. So that's what I would like to do, is get it so we manage the budget so that we're not giving the taxpayers extra, that they have to pay extra money. So that it goes into some fund that's at $7 million now, that we don't have to do that. We just say, this is what we need, this is what we're going to work with. If something comes up, we got this contingency fund over here that we'll use as a padding. That's what I'd like to see.
Thank you. Mr. Palange.
First of all, I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to come here tonight and speak. I think we need town councilors here that aren't afraid to speak up and push back on the town and ask hard questions. And I think what happens a lot of times, it's either whether it's the herd mentality or they're getting bullied a little, they're not doing it. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you put me in this position, I'm going to fight. I'm not going to be afraid to speak up. You know, they'll say, well, Falmouth is only going up by X amount. I don't care about Falmouth. We live in Gray. And I don't like that excuse. And I absolutely believe 100% there are things in this budget that we can go through and that we can cut. And if they can't find those cuts, then I guess we don't have the right people in there now. And I will tell you right now, if you vote for me, you'll have your voice heard.
Thank you. Ms. Klinger?
Big shoes to fill. All right, after that speech. I'm a good listener. I have an analytical and evidentiary-based career. I want to focus on tax decreases, eliminate any wasteful spending, and be a voice for all residents. And that's why I think I would be the best candidate to represent you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Farrington, you have the last word of the evening.
Okay, so this is all new to me, politics, and unfortunately, I've run a small business, and in between toll calls, I've been playing Sherlock Holmes around this town. So I've been meeting with all the department heads, getting all their info, their input. Public Works, Fire Department. Fire Department is, their station's a little too small, that's gonna need work. The town office is really overstaffed, overpaid. They come and go at will. That's something that's really, I mean, if I have to run my towing business out of the town office parking lot, I will. Pop in, see what they're doing. Like Vinny said, or Dave said, you can never find a code enforcer when you need them. Everybody just come and goes at will. They need to be, if they're gonna be working 36 hours, hour off for lunch, 32 hours, they better be there for the 32 hours. We're gonna hold them accountable for their actions in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates and members of the public and those watching at home for coming this evening to help the Gray voters make informed decisions at the ballot box. A reminder to viewers that Election Day is June 10th and polls are open at the New Begin Gym from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Absentee ballots are available until 3 business days before Election Day, and a recording of this forum will be available on the Town of Gray's YouTube channel in the days leading up to the election. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Thank you.